All right, testing 1, 2, 3. Okay, I've got some sound here. Well, got 8 minutes. Let's see who shows. Did you get the email about tonight? Okay. Okay, I see another person. Hi. Hello there. We've got 2 of us here. Yeah, maybe we'll have some people come piling in at 6 o'clock. Oh, okay, good. Well, I'll explain to everybody what's. Well, I think I did in the email, but we'll all need to talk tonight. Not the first time I've had to do this. It won't be the last, I'm sure. How's your week going?
Good. I actually fell down at practice this week.
Oh no!
And actually had to get stitches.
How many stitches?
Just one.
Oh,
It was
okay.
really insignificant, but it was just a deep hole.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's all right. I still had a good week of practice.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember I was playing ball in high school, and there was a kid beside me. He got hit, and apparently he got hit in the head and had a concussion. But in those days, people didn't think about that. I was one of the first. Our helmets were the very first had a cage or any kind of protection. Yeah, that's how long ago it was. But we played through the whole second quarter, and we were there, and he was humming, and after a while we realized he was completely out on his feet, and he was just humming, and he'd come up to the line and go, and so they took him and gave him smelling salts and what, but he forgot. He had played the entire quarter at halftime. I had one incident my senior year, and I had split the back of my pants out, okay? And so you could see, and I'd come off the field. I'd go onto the field, and everybody on my bench, they were all cheering and clapping, and I thought, I'm doing so good. I got into the halftime. And I looked, and I thought, oh my. And I had been playing. Yeah, that was very embarrassing. But my teammates, being encouraging people, they were all like, yeah.
You probably meant to do this.
Yeah. I had some strange moments, but yeah, strange moments. I got recruited to play a couple of places, but I chose not to. Vanderbilt recruited me, and I asked my brother, and he said, "Well, it's a good school if you want to get beat 50-0 every week, and then have to compete with the kind of scholars they attract." So I thought, well, no. So I stopped. No, I don't want to do that. My dream was to play catcher for the New York Yankees, and the scouts came through Oklahoma City, but I didn't have the arm strength to throw to second base in time. They clock you, and if you can't throw at a certain speed, I'm sure it's much faster now. They won't use you because you have to be able to throw people out. Okay, and it's the same with our outfielders now too. They almost have to have an arm as good as a pitcher because you have so many guys, you have so many players who are so mobile and so fast that you can. It's not unusual now. I'm a baseball fan to see somebody hit a single, and if you've got somebody that's fast and they get a jump on the ball, they score. And it used to be it would take a double to do that, but yeah. But I was depressed for a couple of years after that happened. I thought, well, my life is over. Then I realized it really wasn't. But yeah, that was my big dream. and I just didn't have the arm strength. It's ironic, isn't it? I hit well, I fielded well, but I didn't have the arm strength. So I know none of you, I don't know if any of you are at all baseball fans, but one of the people, crosstown rivals of us, a gentleman by the name of Daryl Porter, who was at Southeast High School in Oklahoma City. He went on and played for the Cardinals and for the Royals, and had a very unfortunate, he had a bad drug habit, unfortunately died. But he was a great player. And he was not only a great catcher, but he threw the shot put and set the state record in shot put for them. I've never seen anybody so athletically gifted in my entire life. And he would run for them, and he'd run like in the 440, and I think he took second or third in the state. He's just phenomenal. Great, but yeah, he played with the Royals, and then he played with the Cardinals. I think he played in 1 or 2 World Series. Okay, everyone. Well, I'll get us started. It's close to 6 o'clock, and I sent everybody an email out, and I said, I really want people here tonight, and I want to explain that because I know it was a little bit jarring when you received it. So let me kind of give you some quick history. In order for me, I'm glad to have you aboard. In order for me to be able to offer the class in this format, I've had to make sure that the administration bought into this, okay? And you're paying a lot of money to go to school, and we want you to have the best experience possible. And we're also trying to balance off things like folks, coming in here tired from practice, etc. So I said, okay, well, we're going to try to do a hybrid format. And in this course, what I've tried to do with this 6 o'clock start, or any of my evening courses, is to go 6, until about 7:30 or 8, and then do a second part or so and try to chunk it out. But I do have, but it is transparent. In other words, folks can come in who have a vested interest and take a look to see if people are attending, and my physical attendance in here and or people online, those attendants have just dropped. So it puts me and all of us in the position where I may have to say, okay, it's strictly run just like a regular course, and that's just not going to be. So you're here till 9 o'clock, okay? And I know you don't want to do that. So as you talk to people, they're in the class, you need to get the word out to them, because I have to have certain attendance percentages to justify doing the course like this. Now, if it's not your cup of tea as a class, I can change it to fit. But I suspected that maybe it worked for you because it didn't keep you up here in a grind for 3 hours. And that was kind of my theory, in that after a long day, the last thing you want to do is sit here for another 3 hours. And over the times I've been teaching evening classes, and I've been doing it for a long time, I know at about 7 or 7:30 you peaked out and you're gone. And I know because I took classes at that time of day at night, and I was in the same situation. I'm very empathic with your situation for a very simple reason. I came to school here, it's been a long time ago, and I was here for 3 semesters. And after a very unfortunate pyrotechnic experiment that went awry, my parents decided I could start paying for school myself. So I worked my way through school. I took 1 class at a time. I took classes in the evenings, on weekends, at air bases. And I thought, and it was tough, because it was discouraging to take a class in a semester and you keep going, when will this ever end? So I've always remembered that experience. I said, okay, if there's a way, let me say this: if I had a way to go online to school like folks can now, I would have chosen that route, because I was working. Now, those of you who are, we have many students who are working part-time jobs to get through. You're working. And those of you who are student athletes, you are working. I know you are. You put in practice time, you have game time, you have the travel demands and all that. So I said, okay, and I persuaded the powers that be to say, let me deal with you as if you are working adults, like those people I taught a long time ago. I taught it at school, that we catered to people who were mid-career people, vice president level, so forth, and they never finished a degree. They came to school, they partied, they flunked out. But then the company's saying, you need a degree. So we did that to get them through the process. So I never forgot all of that because I understood the struggles they had, and I'm very empathic. I know you're young people and you're pretty resilient, but I know it's a grind when you've got practice and this and that. So I have to have this talk with all of my classes because I'm not getting the participation rate in the ground-based part that we need. You with me? Okay. Now, if you are, let me stop and ask you, is my assumption wrong in believing that the format I have now is a good format for you? Does it work for you? Okay. What I'll have to have you do then is make a commitment, and you're going to have to talk with those who are not here tonight, that I've got to have higher attendance. Now, physical attendance, okay, is you either in the seat, okay, or I can go over here and I can look at my computer, and if you're logged in, and I can see I've got 3 other people. You with me? And I have to have a certain percentage of students that would justify me saying we're okay. And that percentage of students is pretty much equal to what we have in a regular class. Okay, so if you walk into Civ and say, for example, and there's 100 students in there, there is a percentage of people they expect to be in there. And we just have the numbers, we've tracked them for years. And the reason is unlike a big school that in some way just doesn't care, we want you to finish and we care about you. So we track that. We kind of play mom and dad. And when we see people who start to kind of fall by the wayside because they're not attending, then student services gets involved and everybody else, and you kind of get swarmed by a bunch of different people. Your advisor, student services, probably somebody over in spiritual life, because we don't want to have, our nightmare is that someone just kind of disappears, and then we have a parent saying, "Didn't you know that my child, my kid, my son had," it's usually my child, missed. They haven't been to class for 8 weeks, okay? Which if you don't have an answer for that, it's you feel a little sketchy. The other issue involves 2 things, and one of them is your federal aid, student loans, etc., and the NCAA. I'll talk about that for a moment. In an NCAA environment, which we are, your class participation, attendance, and grades, etc., is absolutely a transparent issue because they track all of that. Now, a big school like OU, for example, they've got hundreds of millions of dollars at stake. So trust me, they police their student athletes very, very heavily. So if somebody doesn't make it to class, they hear about it that day, and an assistant coach is talking to that student because they're all over in the dorm, etc. Well, we don't want to approximate that kind of thing, but we are concerned, and we do want to make sure you're making progress and that you're not in a situation where someone would come to me and say, "Are you teaching a real course or a phony course?" Because there are schools, and there have been a couple here in Oklahoma who offered courses, but they weren't real courses. You follow me? And it's the same we had. This has been a long time ago. You guys were little kids. We had a young man at OU who was going to become a superstar quarterback. He worked supposedly for a car dealer in Norman, but he really wasn't working. They'd punch a clock, and the NCAA found out about it, and Coach Stoops had no choice. He had to dismiss him from the squad, and it killed our season. But he wasn't going to mess around that because I remember the days when we had probation Oh, you was on probation a couple of times, and we weren't on TV. They limited our scholarships, and it was not a fun time. So that's one piece of it. The other piece is this: the federal government, through student loans and student aid, wants to make sure that you have what's called an ability to benefit. What that means is you're taking a course, you're engaged in a course, and so you have the ability to get something from it, to earn a grade, learn a skill, whatever. Now, what's precipitated all that was, for a long time, you had folks like trade schools who'd go out and enroll homeless people or go enroll dead people, and they're not going to finish or graduate. So the federal government said we're going to start tracking attendance and so forth. And if you don't participate here in a class, if you miss a certain number of classes, and the registrar kind of patrols all of that, you're subject to what we call an FN grade. And it used to be an FX, and that means an F not participated. What that means is you don't get the F, but the feds are coming to see you because they want their money back. And our lender has to say you didn't attend. Now, I have friends that have worked for some places some schools that they do a lot of nothing but online, and they are really, really heavy duty about that because they don't want, if they get a certain number of those kinds of incidents at an institution for a given size, you start to put things in jeopardy, i.e. your ability to offer federal aid, okay? And if we can't offer you federal aid, we're going to be in trouble. So that's probably more than you wanted to hear, but you're adults, and I want to make sure you understood that kind of thing other than just me feeling like you've got to be here. It's not a feeling. The class, you need to participate. Now, that means you're either here on the ground-based portion of this. You're either here physically, or you're physically here through the magic of Zoom and the virtual room. Then what I do, as you know, is I've taken and I've gotten the agreement, the green light to do it, is to take and chunk the rest of that other 75 minutes into parts, okay? And that's an on-demand thing, so you can see it when you want, okay? So I'm speaking with all of my classes because my attendance rates have not been what they need to be, and I made a commitment that if we did it, we were going to do it right. And if I just let that slide, what happens is we go back, we kind of go backwards and say we're right back in the same thing. Trust me, I've been here quite a while, and I've taught classes at night, and by 8:30 or 9 o'clock, both I and the students in that class are like ready to go because you're so tired and you can't get anything out of it. So I'd really rather do it. And also, there used to be some instructors who would let people out early, and they'd hear about it. And a couple of them, I think, probably were shown the door because there was a feeling that you were cheating the students. So I don't want you to get cheated. I want you to get that first hour and a half or so. Then, when you're refreshed and you can see, and I'll have a second part there ready for you to go. Does that make sense? Okay. So that's what I wanted to speak with you about. And so tonight I'll take a look at attendance. Now, from here on out, because I had one class where I had a real problem, I'm going to have to be a little bit more of a stickler. So if you can't make it, I need to ask you to tell me why. So if you're not going to be here physically, or you can't come in virtually, then you'll need to send me an email to let me know, because I've got to catalog those things. Is that fair enough? You may have a question I could answer for you. Okay? I know the email sounded pretty blunt and direct and a little bit, and I am, because I don't want to get this ruined for everybody. I guarantee you, trust me, down the road, if my hope is one of these days we'll be able to offer these classes in what we call an asynchronous or on-demand basis. In other words, it's there, you do the work, boom, and maybe we might have 1 or 2 class sessions that we could do something really, really nice or special, but I can't get us to that point until I can get us doing this well. And trust me, I've got folks watching, and I've made the commitment to do this and do it right. And I hope you'll understand at the end of the day, I have a tremendous respect for the fact that you're here, and you're here because of a variety of reasons. You've borrowed some money, you've worked, your parents have chipped in some money. And so your degree, you don't pay for it by yourself. For example, and if you come to when you go through graduation, you'll hear the people at the Baptist General Convention say, greetings. And all of those people out in those churches, like mine, give money to the cooperative fund, and that money comes in here to pay for you to go to school. So I want to make sure that the investment they make in you is a good one. And I can tell you, I don't know how many times it is a year that somebody finds out I teach at OVU, and I'll have someone, and it's usually a parent, who will say, my kid can't get in over there because they can't get this or that. And so I have to send them on to tell them, here's who to call and find out about federal financial aid or whatever. And so I'm very attuned to the fact that all of this, my salary, your ability to be here, et cetera, this is a great opportunity for us, and it's provided by other people, not just ourselves. And I don't ever forget that. When I taught for a state school, I understood the taxpayers supported that. When I worked for a private institution that was non-sectarian, it was a non-Christian school, we had people who were donors, and I understood I'm working, and those people make it possible. So, you with me? Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I know that we'll do a little bit better. Okay, if you're logged in, and you should be here, we're going to take a look at the modules, okay? And again, we're progressing through these different types of business problems that we're going to work with. And again, we're going to be working with Excel. And there are a couple of things that are going on with these. What we're doing is, first of all, we're using Excel to try to provide us data that we can transform into some kind of picture, a graph, a line chart, something that will help us visualize the problem that we're trying to deal with. And what I have for you there are a series of common or typical business programs, okay? Business problems, excuse me. So when this course was first developed, we sat down with faculty and said, okay, and people out in business and other faculty, but primarily a lot of business people, what are the kinds of things you run into? And so we began to design the course around that. Now, as you noted, I'm working ahead. Now, I want to make sure for a moment that I help you understand what I'm doing, okay? You'll notice in this course that you have a lot of quizzes, right? They're open book, open note. Why is that? Because I don't care? No. I know that someday if you're at work and you have a problem, you're going to go ask somebody. I also know that when you go to work, you're going to be given a lot of stuff to read and to analyze. So I'm trying to give you some of the vocabulary or concepts, but at the same time, simulate for you what it's going to be there at work and what it will be like. So that's a piece of this. If I wanted to offer a class, look, you've taken courses and you've had people who the course is really more about how do I guess what they're going to give me on the exam than the material. okay? And those would drive me crazy. And I've had those courses where it was like, are we here to learn this, or is it about how well I guess what you want to make me learn or want me to know? So I try to limit that kind of stuff and give you a chance to get some of the vocabulary and the concepts that you need to have. Now, the workshop piece of this is really, think of it like practice, okay? Why would I make you try to guess how to solve a problem as opposed to just simply saying, here's the problem, here's the way we can address it and try to present it and tell the story of what the issue is and maybe what some alternatives would be. So the workshop credit, you can gain, here's how you gain the workshop credit. You try it before you show up and upload it, or you're here and you try to work through it as I work you through it, and you get the credit. Okay? I don't want to trip you up or fool you or deduct points from you. That's the last thing I want you to understand what we're doing. Now, at the same time, the workshops do provide you they do provide you a pedagogical advantage in the sense that you're going to run into some exams and finals where you'll be asked to do certain things, and I will have done those in the workshop. So that's why they're there, they're recorded, and the screencast is there. Now you notice, for example, this week, I provided you a key. All right? Now, why? Well, I provide you the key because I want you to try it. And if you don't get it right, or you mess things up, or it's not as good as it could be, then rather than punish you, I want to reward you for trying. Okay? And I do that by saying, okay, here's the key. And if you tried and you made an effort, then we're good to go. Is that fair enough? Okay. This is how many of you are athletes? Okay. How many of you does your coach say, now I have a play in mind, but I want you to guess what it is? Anybody got a coach that does? Okay, I see a couple of hands. Well, I can only imagine the football team. It's it's 4th and 2 at the goal line, and somebody asks for the play, and the coach says, "I'm not telling you. You figure it out on your own." That's kind of stupid. So what I'm hopefully doing for you is also something that I know is a good practice out of business, and that is good managers will set expectations and will show people how to fulfill those expectations. I've worked in many places where people spent way too much time trying to guess what the boss wanted. What does he want? What does she think? What does she want? Wasted time and energy. They should say, here's what I want. If that works, fine. If someone's got a better deal, fine. But the whole idea is we get the task accomplished. So I'm trying to model that here for you by saying, okay, here's some ways to get this accomplished and get it done. Fair enough? Okay. So we had a couple of these. We had XLS4 and we had XLS5. Now, what I'm also doing each week is I'm providing you the resources, okay, for the cases, and then as the Excel cases, and then as we move on, we'll take a look at the resources. We'll be working with the resources for Microsoft Access. So far, so good? There's one final piece, and you'll see this over here in each of these modules. And you'll notice this BISS here about this, budgets versus forecasts. What I try to do, all right, is to go a little bit beyond what's in the text, or a little bit beyond what we're talking about, and maybe give you some advanced material or some additional or supplemental material so you can kind of go, oh, okay, and you can put some of this into broader context. And so I try to find some things, we call it curating them, so that when you say, okay, I'm kind of interested in budgeting, well, I've got something there for you to follow up on or to take a look at. The same thing with what is the trade deficit and how does it work and all that business. So that's another piece there. And I don't give you credit for going over and looking at those, and I don't give you a test over them. Okay, but I do. The test is, have you said, okay, I'm gonna have a career in business, and I'm gonna make a commitment to go the extra mile to really be good and to really know my stuff. Companies of all sizes and all types are looking for people who think like an owner. How many of you have had principles of management? Anybody? Okay. There's a problem we have in management, and it's called the agency theory problem. And you say, what are you talking about? When a company hires me to run their business, I have an agency problem. That is, I'm working as the agent of the owners. And so let's say I'm the CEO, and I get paid in stock bonuses. And I say, okay, I'm going to cut some money off of research and development, although we really need to do it because it'll bump the price of the stock up, and hey, I'll get another little, my option will kick in, I'll make a few $100,000 more. Well, that's a problem. It's an agency problem because I'm not acting, on behalf of the best interests of the shareholders. And all of these things that you see, these crazy, when I keep reading about all these people that run these big companies that have been caught into this Me Too stuff, I'm thinking, what were you thinking? Or what Kool-Aid were you drinking that week that you thought you could pull something like that, and at some point something's going to come back and get you? And so we have all these people who are powerful people falling like dominoes. I don't know. Maybe they all went to camp somewhere, and maybe their brains went dead. I don't know. But I look at some of those people and I go, what were you thinking? Some stuff they did. And frankly, hey, they got it coming. They truly did. And see, here's an issue where if I have CBS stock, okay, and the CEO of CBS is now I'm going, okay, my stock drops $25 this week. I'm pretty angry, and rightfully so, because I didn't put my money in there for it to shrink. I put it in there to grow. So this agency problem is one of these things where you have to understand it's not your money. It's somebody else's money. And if you start with that ethic and you operate from that approach, you'll be okay. And that really is that's a lesson that corporate America has to learn over and over and over. Every so many years, we have some weird, strange thing happen. It's the same as the things like the bank crisis. And all I can tell you is business as an occupation, as a profession, has a bad reputation because of those people. But at one time, if you were in business, people revered you. And think of the really good people that are out there. I'd say one of them would certainly be Warren Buffett. And I'll tell you a quick story, then we'll move on. This is an interesting thing. At one point, the United States Federal Reserve and the Treasury had a run on the bank. And this was, everybody was demanding gold from the government. And they didn't have all the gold they needed to pay off. And our government and the Federal Reserve was about to do the unthinkable, and that was default. And John Jacob Astor, Vanderbilt, and Rockefeller stepped forward and pledged their personal fortunes back up the United States. Can you imagine being that wealthy? No problem, USA, we've got it. That's wealth. And those people are patriots. And my goodness, Rockefeller owned, I don't know, a third of the railroads. His wasn't all in stock options. He owned railroads and timber. But can you imagine three business people stepping up and saying, we'll make sure the federal government of the United States is good on its debts. Wow. Well, things have changed. Okay. some food for thought. Let's go and take a look at these, and I want to just briefly look at the key for XLS4. So let's take a look at it real quickly, and we'll download it. And there's not a whole tremendous amount there, but we've got a little proforma that we're building. And this is one of the key things that we're talking about, is this business about templates and proformas. A proforma, P-R-O-F-O-R-M-A, okay, that is a Latin word, meaning it's a Latin word that means for the sake of. And it's a form, it's a tool that we use as a way to put data into context. Now, let's open up that on your desktop. By the way, how many of you have a Mac? Okay, we're trying to figure out how to a way for you to get Mac with the VMware and to be able to use the Office products off of VMware. And we may have something, so if we do, I'll let you know. So, and we're trying to get this worked out so that if you need to, you can go into the VMware like you have on your desktops, but you can go remote and you can download those products and work with them. Well, let's look at this for just a moment, and we have this proforma. And let me get over here, and I want to enable the editing real fast. Now, up here in the blue, we have what we call the assumptions area. Every spreadsheet is a workbook that's well designed is going to have the following. It's going to have at the very least, it's going to have an ID area, and probably should put something in here about what we're trying to do. Then it will have an assumptions area, okay? And that's that in that blue. And then we come down to the part called the balance sheet. Now, the balance sheet is a moment in time of how well or where a company's financial position. And then as you come down, you're going to see it starts with what we call the short-term assets or current assets. And then we go to what we call long-term assets, and then any depreciation. Depreciation is nothing more than a charge on the use life of an asset. And then we come up with our net fixed assets, and then we have the total assets. That's a proforma for a balance sheet. It's a template, if you will. Follow? And why? Because we can plug numbers into this, and we can get consistency because we're handling the data in the same way. Now, as we come down here, we'll come down to the income statement, and here I did a little bit of work, and I'll show you what we're looking at. On that right-hand side, again, are the assumptions. Think of the assumptions like constants in an equation. So if I were to say x plus 6 equals 20, you'd go, okay, it's 14. If I were to say x plus 6 equals 21, you'll go, okay, x is 15. Same story with these proformas. We just plug in the data, and then we recalculate. Now, we do this for two reasons. Number one, because the data will change, and number two, we can start to use a proforma as a way to look at trends, or as a way to look at or to build forecasts. With me? Okay, so let's look at this for just a minute. And we start off, and here's an assumption that we have. And we have an assumption that our sales, and this is year 0. So I'd want to label this up here the year or period, okay? It's probably a year. So I'm going to put year. I'm right there in cell D28. And we get year 0, then year 1, 4. So we're looking at an income statement for the next 4 years. We start off with, we have our starting data for year 0, okay? And then we have the cost of goods sold, and we get depreciation. And if you want to see how it's put together, look up in the formula bar. Now I'll just start right back here. Okay, and here we have, and then the cost of goods sold. And notice I can click inside the formula bar, and I'm going to see the cells. And what this says is that we're assuming that the COGS, or cost of goods sold, equals 75% of sales. Well, and we have that percentage on the basis of some historical data, something like that. The next thing, we come down and we look at depreciation. And again, we take that figure and we assume that the depreciation, we've got D30, okay, times L35. And so we're assuming that depreciation is equal to 10% of sales. Now, if you stop and think for a moment, what we're doing is we're saying, okay, I have a benchmark figure, sales, against which I plug in these assumptions. You follow me? And then I can see, and I get my operating income, and notice what I've got. It's D30, the $1,000, minus D31 plus D32. And this gives me my operating income. You say, what do you mean? All right, I sold $1,000 worth of stuff, or let's call it $1 million. The cost of goods sold was $750,000 or $750. The depreciation is $100, so what's left over is $150. Yes. It's not. It's got 700. Okay, let's look at this for just a second. Okay, well, it's easy. Easy to change. Let's do this. I'll put 0.70. Now we're good. Okay? And you see all the rest of it changes. I just changed that assumption figure. Okay? So what this is saying is I have so many dollars in sales. I subtract what it cost me to sell the stuff, and then I subtract depreciation. Now, depreciation is what we call a non-cash expense. That is, I account for it, I take it off, I choose it, I put it on here as if I'm spending money because I'm using up resources, but it's a non-cash expense. And so when you take your accounting or finance, probably finance, you'll learn about depreciation, which is a non-cash expense, which means I take it out of taxable income. And if I'm doing a cash flow statement, I add it back. Depreciation is an incentive for companies to invest in equipment and long-term assets, which is what promotes growth. So I end up and I've got 200 in operating income, okay? With me so far? And then this just simply becomes a process where I take the interest income times that percentage, the interest expense. That's what I have to pay on what I borrowed. Income before taxes, and you can see how that's footed together. And then I have my taxes, and then I have my net income, the bottom line. Okay? Now, it just becomes a matter for me, if I wish, if I want to project this forward or move through year by year, I just do the cell referencing. Now, the textbook was going to have you do some filter, paste, and all that stuff. I'm old school, and I say just if you have things properly referenced, it's going to work, no matter how far across in a row you go or how far down you go in a column. And let's look at this first one for the sales growth. Now, we're going to take our sales growth is D30, which is the $1,000 plus $1,000 times L29. So 2% of 1,000 is $20, and I had my base or starting period of 1,000. So my new figure for year one is 1,020. So, and then I just simply dragged and dropped this across, and I've got this. Okay? So what we did there. And then I just do the same thing with each row. And here I've got L34 times E30. And notice L34, which is an assumption, is a absolute cell reference. In other words, dollar sign in front of the column, dollar sign in front of the number. Pardon me, the row. And I'm going to take that times E30. And notice I put a dollar sign in front of 30, and I just carry it across. And the F30, and there I am. And I just repeat that same thing. That's why it's a pro forma, because I just follow the process along. And once I built that, I'm in good shape. And I can extrapolate it out as far as I want to. Does that make sense? Anybody have a question I could try to answer for you? Anybody? Okay. Now, the next thing we can do if we want is we can try to visualize this. Now, if you upload and you took a shot at the balance sheet, I'm fine with that. It's really no different. You just come in and work off the assumptions for the balance sheet, and they're over there, and then you just take it through years 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, interestingly, okay, in terms of the stock, that stays fixed, and that's how much common shares or common stock outstanding that we have. Okay, and you can just build it. You can just go ahead and build that, and you have the balance sheet. If you tried, fine. If you didn't, I wouldn't worry about it. Okay, because once you see the process, I've taught finance in a lot of different places and for a long time. And once you understand that finance is basically about performance, okay, how do I set this up so I can look? And really a lot of it about algebra, you're good to go. And this is because it's a tool. Now with this tool, for example, on the income, I can look at the income growth, okay, year to year, or I can look at the income growth from year 0 to year 4. Now, if you look at that income growth, it's helpful for us, or it's instructive for a very simple reason. It's set up like an annuity. You've heard that term annuity. Anybody here had a finance course? Anybody taken, what's the thing, the guy, Financial Peace University, done that, financial planning? You learn about the time value of money, okay? And you learn about an annuity. An annuity is simply, it's a fixed amount of money invested for a fixed amount of time at a fixed amount of return, i.e. interest. And so we can see the time value of money and how much it's going to grow. That's called the future value of it. Now, if we take that future value and say, okay, in 20 years, you'll have $1 million. Then we ask the question, okay, what's it going to be worth today? I'll give you a good example. My folks built one of the first houses in Del City, and it was $12,000. And my grandparents, I remember, were aghast because my mom and dad had a mortgage for $12,000. I remember granddad, how are you going to pay that? Because he'd moved into Oklahoma City, and they just built their house. People on the farm, they can do anything. And my parents just kind of listened to it, and they're okay. Now, if I went today back to that house, which is now over 70 years old, I imagine they bought 20 or 30,000. I can guarantee you there are houses in Oklahoma City that were built, in the 60s or 70s, and people paid $30,000. Now people want $100,000 or $300,000. Right before the financial crisis, my sister called me. She lives out in Chandler, Arizona, which is a suburb of Phoenix. And she called me and said, "You won't believe this." I said, "What?" "My real estate agent called, and he said the valuation of our house is $493,000, and he thinks we ought to sell." Okay? Because she went out there when real estate was cheap, and Chandler was out in the boonies. Of course, now if you go there, it's all stranded. I said, "Okay, do this. Here's a way to think through this. Let's say you got $493,000. Now, I want you to go over and take a look at some of the real estate websites and tell me what you can get for $493,000. She's got a big house, nice pool, nice yard, beautiful, gigantic palm trees. she's living the dream. She called me back in about an hour and said, "This is ridiculous." I said, "Why?" And she told me because the 493 isn't going to buy her anything, not close to what she's got. And I said, "So what does that mean?" Stay there. Don't sell, because you can't replace what you have for that kind of money. So we have to think about that. So we can look at some trends here. And just as we've talked about visualizing these data, we're going to look at the sales for a minute. Now we know the sales are going to go up 2% a year. And so if I wanted to, I could say, all right, in terms of dollars, how much will sales go up over the next 5 years? So I'm also counting year 0. And I'm looking at how much. Let's go up $82,000 or $82. Let's call these thousands. So over the next 5 years, the sales will go up $82,000. So on average, about $16,000. Okay? Now, people will often not want to look at this if it's a long bunch of figures with a table. So sometimes we have to visualize it. And so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start first on the sales, and I'm going to highlight that area. Okay? And I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to find the conditional formatting. Did you find it? And I'm going to click on my choices for conditional formatting, and I'm going to use, I think what I'm going to use are some color scales, or, yeah, we don't want to do the data bars because they're running across, so we're going to do the color scales. Okay? And we'll apply it to them. Let me move this out of the way here. And go here. Boom. There we are. Now, I'm going to use green, yellow, red, meaning, good, medium, bad. I could flip that and say, red. But here I'm using green because we tend to think it was good or green as go. And if this is rainfall, like they're tracking tonight, I'd put the red would be the highest amount of rainfall, and then I have a band of maybe a lighter red, and then a band of probably of yellow, and then a band of green. And so you want to see how people that present data in the most effective way are the folks that do weather. Okay, so here we can see we're growing. The sales are going up. Now, if I wanted to, I could also go ahead and come back. Same thing over here. And I'm just using some conditional formatting. I'm going to use that color scale. And it tells me that my net income is what? It's growing. Okay? Now, can I figure out how much it's growing? Of course. And I'm going to do that. I'm just going to simply take, and this will equal 139.08, okay, over, and I'm going to get that ratio, and I'm growing about 9%. A 9% growth for that total period. See me? Follow? So I've used the performer to tell me a whole lot of information about what I'm dealing with here. So that's number 4. Does this help, or yes or no? You think you feel a little more comfortable looking at an income statement and saying, okay, I kind of understand what's going on here. Because what we want to know at the end of the day is, how much net income am I making? And for that period of time, I've made, the ratio is 1.09, so I've made a 9% income. I've had 9% adjustment upwards in income. Now, how do I know that? Well, I just took the income at the ending period, which is there for year 4, and I divided it by year 1, and I got 1.09. Okay? So, well, okay, so what? Well, let's come over here to cell I for a moment, and let's put in, this is net income. I'll put this net income, and this is total growth, okay, for the period. Now we're going to do something else. Here we know we're going to look at the sales, and so I'm going to look at the sales for the whole period. I'm going to take 1,082, which is 830. You with me? Yeah. And I'm going to divide that by D30, and that will give me the growth in sales. Now I've had a gross growth of the sales, or increase in the sales, of 8%. You follow how I got that? Yeah? I see a few bobbleheads. Okay. Now, I'm going to compare that versus my net income. And over the period of that 5 years, I've made 9% net income. How is it that I made 8% in sales income, but I made 9% in net income? What happened? What do you think happened? Take a shot. We saw how we got that. Wait, how do you think we got there? Anybody want to venture a guess? Anybody? Anyone? Huh? Okay. Take a look here at what I've got, and I'm going to, let me go up here. I'll highlight so everybody can see. Okay. And all right, now between year 0 and year 4, in other words, 5 years, the net income grew by 9%. And I got that by taking the income for year 4 and dividing that by the income for year 0. Okay? Then I took the income, the sales for year 4, and I divided it by the sales for year 0, excuse me. And I got 1.08. What might have happened that I would have net income that grew 1% more than sales? What might account for that? Interest income. Why is that? Your investments are growing. Yeah, that's good because I'm making some extra money there. What else? Was there anything else helping me? Operating income, for sure. So you took a look, and now you have some plausible explanations for what's happened here. And now you've identified a couple of strengths here for this company, and we can see on the whole they've performed pretty well because they generated 8 cents in sales, let's call it that, and got 9 cents in return. So let's do this. Let's divide net income, that 1.09, that ratio. Let's divide that. We'll just do this. I'm going to do this 0.09 divided by 1.08. Boom. Okay? And I've got a percentage bump, which is pretty good. Now, if this is $1 billion we're talking about, and you're right, you identified 2 strengths of this company, and what we just did was we did a trend analysis. Okay? We looked at how much things changed over time. And you saw, for example, which is excellent, you saw that the operating income was up. The operating income's up $16.49 over 200. That's about, I think, about almost a 10% increase in terms of operating income. That's good. What that means is I'm handling my operations very, very well. And one of the things that's helped me do that is depreciation. As it's grown, it's suppressed my total expenses, but it's a non-cash expense. This is a great country. And think of it. You're a business person. You buy a piece of equipment, okay? And you use it and you depreciate it. And that reduces how much tax you owe. But you're actually not paying cash out the door. You're just getting the credit for the use of the asset. And then when you do your statement of cash flow for your shareholders, you take that and you add it back in. It's known as the depreciation cash add back. And suddenly, you're looking good. Is this a great country or what? God bless America. I'm about to get a flag out. I don't know about you. I'm kidding. Why? Well, we want to encourage people to invest. So there's a lot here that we could see as we analyze this, and we took some assumptions, our starting data, and then extrapolated them out, and that was case 4. We used a pro forma for a net income, for his income statement. Okay? Now, you say, all right, Dr. Harmon, that's wonderful, but how much cash roughly do I have? Well, that's an easy question to answer. I can take the net income, and let's just do this. Come down here to cell, come down to cell D39, okay? And we're going to add, this will equal depreciation, okay? And we're going to add in depreciation plus net income, all right? And in each case, we're going to stay on row 32 and 38. So I'm going to put a $sign in front of the row number. And boom. This is really what I've got in the bank. Net income plus the depreciation add back, because depreciation is non-cash expense, gives me a whole different picture. We want to reward people for investing, and we encourage people to invest in equipment and plants and things of that nature, so that what? We'll be more productive. Isn't that nice? It's also good, for example, if you're a real estate developer, okay, and you go to Dubai and you build a $50 billion hotel, you get to take off depreciation. And it's a non-cash expense. So you lower your tax expense, okay? You shield that cash. You take that cash that's shielded through depreciation, you invest it, and then at the end of the day, you've made even more money. And the folks in Dubai love it. Why? Because we built them a giant, they love, has anybody here been to Dubai? That's on my bucket list. I want to see all those office buildings. I'm not sure I'd want to be one in a fire, but I'd want to just see them, because they've got some incredible, incredible architecture there. Those folks have more money than they know what to do with. And hey, they're trying to plan for the time when the oil runs out, because they know it will. So they're trying their best, and they're starting to succeed there to become a hub of the financial world. And also, they understand that the people in Dubai are very smart. They also understand that around the world, particularly in the Western world, we've got more and more people who are getting older, and old people need what? A lot of tender, loving care. And for you to open the door for them and buy them candy and provide the medical care. So Dubai is really making a push to provide world-class medical care like cancer and all other kinds of things of that nature. So you fly over there, you get the treatment, and you fly home. And you stay in these luxurious places. And they're smart, very smart, because they understand one day the oil will be gone. And when the oil is gone, they've got to do something to make a living. And now I've got this set up. So I'm going to come back here, and now I have the cash, an estimated cash flow. And there we go. This is and we would call this the estimated cash flow. Why are we interested in cash? What do you think, anybody? Anybody have an idea why we're interested in cash? I know where it's going. What else? Cash is what? It's scratch. It's my ability to buy stuff. If I got cash, I'm rolling. I'm good. If I have $100 tonight, how many of you know how many of you are from the great state of Oklahoma? Okay? How many of you know that our fair has started? And here we are tonight in class. I should have, if I was really a true Oklahoman, I would have canceled class and said, we're going to the fair. And I'd given you each a $50 bill and said, buy all. What's anybody go to what do you eat at the fair? What do you have to buy? There's a certain food item you must buy, and it's what? Funnel cake. Funnel cake or what else? You're on it. Corn dogs, funnel cakes. $50 worth of those, you'll come back, probably in an ambulance. But the people on Channel 9 were down there this morning. I was watching, I was eating breakfast, and they were having all these different things. But funnel cakes, hot dogs, the fair. If you've got cash, you're good to go. So here in this case 4, we've got a lot going on. So that key is there for you to say, and again, just some ideas for us to look at. Now, let's look at it real quickly, and we'll go over here as we're starting to come upon the magic hour. You can go over and take a look at the key for Excel 5, and I'm going to cover it real quickly, and we'll talk about it some. Okay, I'm going to get the key, not the upload. My apologies. All right, here's the key. Now let's download this key for a moment, and we'll take a look at it. Does this help you? Yes? No? You have the key, and you can download that key, and you also have, so if you want to say, okay, all this stuff you're talking about, okay, well, here's what I would do if I were you. I'd download the key, because it's there, you can do that. Then, if you want to say, okay, he's talking about some stuff, maybe Royce is a little bit ahead of where I'm at this point, which is okay. Take that, and then download the transcript. And then you can read it a lot faster than you can listen to me. Now, here's the key for 5, okay? And I'm going to show it in the folder, and then I'm going to put it on my desktop. All right? Now, let's look at this problem, and we'll move over here. Here we go. Now, here in this problem, what we're doing is we're building a forecast for revenue, and we're assuming that the revenue is going to grow 10% a year. Okay, I put the money in the bank. Grandma gives me $300, and I'm going to make 10% a year. So I simply, again, use a pro forma. I use a formula to do that. Now let's look first of all here, and that's the 300, and then 2012 you could do in your head. It's 330, and 2013 is could do it in your head. You could say, okay, I've got 30, then 10% of 30 is 3. So it's 33 more, so it's 363. And then another 36 bucks. I just go on. Or you can do this, and we take the growth times B7 plus B7. Now I've used the name manager here, and click on the formula for just a minute, and you'll see our friend the name manager. And I have a name manager. I've used name manager, and I've done that to identify the variables. So I don't have to go back and go, oh, I've got to put in, I don't have to use the cell reference. I can use the variable name. That's why I want to use the name manager, and I just use it in the equation, and away we go. Now, the authors in the textbook walk you through some verbiage about doing a filter, paste, and all that business. And look, if you really feel like going through those gyrations, be my guest. But if you want to just get the data and get it done, then just take the projection, use the name manager, and away you go. And notice what I've got, and I'll show you here. And I really should have just called that. Well, I've got the growth up here, and then I've got growth plus, and then B6, B7, and notice how I used the cell referencing to reference to the prior times the growth. So I built a little bit of an annuity table. Fixed amount of money paid for a fixed amount of time. Okay? And so we learned a little bit about using the name manager. Now, I want to go back here for just a moment, and I want to go about another 30 minutes, and then we're going to call it a night, because we've gone pretty hard and pretty fast. And come down here to the module, and now we're talking about cases. We've done 4 and 5, and so now we're going to talk about case 6. So let's go down here to the module for the 20th, and we've got some stuff coming up, and I want to get you ready for it. We've got exam 1, part 1, and that's objective questions. And then exam part 1, part 2, and I have some instructions. That's a hands-on part, okay? So the exam will have some content questions, objective questions, and then it will have a hands-on part. And I'll give you the instructions there to do that, okay? And then I also have a space here for you to upload exam 1, part 2. Upload your work here, okay? Then you've got XLS 6, which is due. And then we've got the point distribution. Now, if you'll scroll down here, you're going to see the resources for the quizzes and the exams. And that's in an Excel sheet, okay? And let's take a look at it for just a minute. And here's exam 1, part 1. There are a set of resources here in Canvas, okay, as well as in the supplemental website that cover that you can use to respond to exam 1, part 1. And I have them titled, and I tell you where they're at. Now you're going to say, okay, what's this supplemental website thing? And I'll show you. Click on the announcements, okay? And if you're a little confused, that's why we have this video. Pardon me. I want to look in the files. Up. I'm sorry. Go back up to the announcements area. I'm sorry. I want to get those resources there. That's where I've got the link. And let me come down here. All right. It's in the modules. My apologies. I stuck it in the module because it makes. Now, under this welcome part, Click that, and you'll see the supplemental website. Everybody find that? Okay. This is an old Google website. I use it like a repository. I keep a bunch of junk over there that I use. So you're going to find those items, and this is an open book, open note test. So you'll want to get those resources and have them available so you can work with exam 1, part 1. Okay? Now I'll take you over there to the supplemental website, and I'll show you, for example. Like I said, it's an old Google website, and you'll want to go in and take a look at the materials. Okay? And you'll see a whole list of resources that I use here, and I have those listed in that, the resources for the exams. So for exam 1, part 1, the content part, you're going to find the material over here. Now, would I recommend that maybe you team up and help each other? I'm okay with that. Okay? I don't have a problem with that at all. It might be smart to do that. That's exam part 1, which is the objective part of exam 1. Okay? So that's where you'll find the stuff. Now, I'm going to take us back here, all right? And we're going to go back to the exam 1, part 2, exam 1, part 2, which is the hands-on part. And I provide you some instructions, excuse me. Let's go down here. And you'll see exam 1, part 1 instructions. This is a hands-on piece. And so let's look at it. Okay. Now, this is, I've got a Word doc here. All right. And I give you very explicit instructions about what you're going to do. You're going to go get a file, okay, and it's called XLS6 Badger Jams. It's from an old textbook that I had at one point, and you're going to assume some changes. So there's an XLS file, and you're going to get it. Okay, with me so far, and it will probably be over at the supplemental website. I think, in fact, that's where it's at. Then you're going to do this. When you open that file up, I want you to change some figures. The rent will go up 5%. The advertising will go up 2.91%. The commercial stove, there's an item in there for that. It's going to be decreased by 6.8%. Cooking equipment will go up 3%. The shipping will go up 12%. Okay, so I have figures there for you, and I'm going to ask you to change them on a percentage basis. All right? Just like we've been working with a concept, but we've been changing, same story. Now, just so you can see what it looks like, you stay there, and I'm going to go on over back to the website, and I'm going to get Badger Jams. I might have it in the files. Let me see if I do first of all. I may or may not. Yeah, I do. All right. Here's Badger Jams, and I'll unpublish that. That's not going to work for you, but this will. Yeah, I'll publish that too. It's different figures. All right. Now, here's Badger Jams, okay? And I'm going to download it and then open it up. Now, let's just see what I'm talking about, right? And I want to come up here, move this up, and I want to download this. I went and found this in the files. I'm going to open this up. I'll show it in the folder and put it on my desktop. Okay. And here we go. And I'm enable editing. Now, you'll see, okay, that I've got some items here where I've told you increase it, decrease it. Got it? So you'll want to take that page where I tell you what to change, how much to change the instructions. It would be smart for you to print the instructions out, okay? So you can make those changes. And you'll look there, and the commercial stove, for example, I think that's in there. That's going to change that figure, and you're going to increase it or decrease it as I ask you to do. Fair enough? Then I've got some other things I ask you to do. Now, again, what this is, and I'll show you real quickly. This is a break-even analysis. And this is a little company that was selling jams, and we used break-even analysis and a concept called the contribution margin to try to figure out how many units of this do we need to sell at a certain price in order to break even. And you can see based on that, we built a chart, break-even chart, that shows us the green is the revenue, okay? There's a fixed cost, certain amount you have to pay every year, and then we have the red, which is the total cost. And as you can see there, if you're looking, okay, you'll see at the top, that little triangle at the top between the green and the red, that's profit town. Down below is what? Loss town. So that break-even point, and notice you'll see the units sold. So to break even under these conditions, I've got to sell 1,147 cases of the stuff. And that generates enough money to pay my fixed costs and to pay my fixed costs and my variable costs. This operates from a thing called the total cost equation, where the total cost equals variable costs plus fixed costs. Variable costs are costs that change with the volume of sales. For example, if I start out and I have a pizza joint and I do $50,000 business a week and I have 25 employees, then suddenly business jumps up and I'm doing $75,000 a week. If I'm smart, I'll do what? Fire half the employees, right? To make even more money. No, I'll add some employees, okay? And that's a variable cost. A fixed cost is a cost that's just basically one I have to pay, like insurance or the interest on money I borrowed. I have to pay that same amount, okay? Yeah, rent, yes, exactly, yeah. You've got it. And you can see here, we have a thing called contribution margin. And the contribution margin is the revenue per unit minus the variable costs. And that contribution margin is the money I have left to pay the fixed costs. Those are costs I must pay. And so you can see how that works. Down here, I built a little pro forma income statement for these folks. And I said, okay, if I don't sell any units, I have zero revenue. But wait a minute, to even get started in business, I had to spend 25 grand. Okay? So if I don't sell any other units, I've lost 25,000 bucks. How do I know? Well, I have a variable cost, none, because I didn't have any sales. And the total cost is $25,700. I don't have any sales. I've invested $25,700, and guess what? I'm $25,700 in the hole. Now, in this case, the entrepreneur was also going to take their personal savings and live on them. And let's see what happens here. The entrepreneur said, okay, I'm going to take I'm going to take another set of money, and that's how much I've put into my savings. And the salary from the savings is 64 grand. And so if I don't sell a single unit, I've lost $89,000. I've lost all my money and all this other money on top of it that I paid in. When people are entrepreneurs, they are very courageous people because they typically have a dream or an idea about making the world a little bit better in one way or the other. Okay? And in the same way, if it doesn't work out, they may lose everything. Now, there are those people who, despite that, they'll come right back out. And so I often will have students say to me, I'd like to be my own boss. I'd like to be an entrepreneur. And here is my advice to them. If you have the money to start a company, fine. If you don't, you may want to try to see if you can get the money accumulated over time to sit down with a successful franchise and say, how much will it cost to get in on this? Because if you say, okay, I'm going to open up a Jack in the Box, it's a lot safer bet because Jack in the Box is not going to let you open a store if you're not going to make money, because Jack in the Box is not in the business of losing money. Okay? And so they're going to have a school you go through. They're going to show you all this stuff and teach you. So sometimes that's the best way to learn. But here we see this pro forma income statement. You can see if they do half as well, they do break even, they do 50% better than break even, and twice. So I'm going to have you take those figures and put them in here. You with me, everybody? And then tell me what it looks like when you insert the figures. Okay? That's part 2. All righty. Close that off. And got the key. Now, case 6 is going to be due. And what I'm going to do is this. For case 6, which is due also next week, I'm going to do a part 2 and cover it. Okay? So you can kind of, we've listened, like good racing horses, I've taken you out of the stall, I've run you hard, and I'm putting you back into the stall wet and putting a blanket on you and the wreath saying, congratulations, you won the Derby. Okay? Anybody here have a horse? Used to? They're beautiful animals, aren't they? And they're incredible. Race horses are just awesome to me. Fastest things in the world. And if you get a chance, now I'm not promoting betting, I would never do that. But how many of you ever been to a horse race? Yeah, I know you have, right? You've never been? You've got to see it to believe it. You have all these huge, massive animals. I went to the Kentucky Derby one year, and it was just, I was awestruck. And they're in these, with these blinders, and these are huge, powerful animals, and they're waiting for what? Those gates to open. And when they do, it's like, and I'm thinking that people riding on top of those weigh about 120 pounds or less. And I'm thinking, I'd be terrified to be in the middle of that, because if the horse falls, you're probably going to hurt pretty bad if you may not even survive it. Horse racing is just to me. And I wish they'd put, I'm going to have to go back and watch and see. I wish they had like a Kentucky Derby cam so you could see it right there, just like you do NASCAR. Are there any NASCAR people here? That's crazy, get in a car and go 200 miles an hour. You know, and they float on each other's air and all that stuff. Woo! You ain't gonna find me doing that. Not at all. Well, I'll work on a case number. I'm going to work on case number 6, and I'll upload a key for it, so everybody understands what's going on for exam 1 next week, right? Where you'll find the material for both part 1 and the hands-on. You say, are you seriously telling me that if we want to try to work in some teams, you're okay with it? Yes. I want to promote teamwork here, all right? Trust me, when you get out in the world, there will be enough ways that you will be filtered and sorted and ranked and unranked and all of that. And I'm not about that. If you work together and do it well, you'll have learned as much as if you memorized stuff or did it on your own. That's just my philosophy, and what I've found that work tends to work over time. Thank you very much. I'll put that part 2 up there for you. Appreciate you hearing me bark at you, and hope we have some more of us like we did tonight, okay? Thank you much, folks. Appreciate it. Anybody have a question I get answers? We're wrapping up. Anybody? Go forth and do good.